May the 15th. It's been about 1 week since I've added the upper brood box. This is just an empty hive body. This upper brood box, I moved one full drawn frame of brood. I moved it up and put it right in the center. Just a couple big black ants on the inner cover. So what I'm going to do today is, it's been about a week and I need to check the sugar water because I'm not going to be able to check them for another week or so. I'm going to check their progress on drawing the frames out. This was the only drawn frame in the center. This feeder is completely empty. It doesn't even have any liquid in it now. It's just completely empty. And they're licking it up whatever's left. You really want to make sure you snap that down all the way around, because if it has any air leaks, it's going to drain all the way down through their hive and out the bottom. And when it drips out the bottom, that sugar water will attract robbers and wasps and ants. And when you flip it back over, you want to do it quite a ways back behind, away from the hive, so anything that is attracted to the sugar on the ground won't be attracted inside the hive. Nothing in these beetle traps yet. This was the drawn brood frame. This frame and this frame on each side of it were empty 1 week ago. I'm wanting to see a lot of drawn comb on these frames, and I'd really like to see fresh eggs laid in the empty brood comb, because I'm kind of concerned that as those bees hatch out of the brood comb, instead of the queen coming up and laying in it, they might be backfilling this with honey. And since the feeder was completely empty, I have a high suspicion that they transferred that sugar water from the bucket into that empty brood frame as it emptied out. Each cell, when it became empty, they may have just packed it full of nectar. That's not what I want to see, but they probably did that. They're not doing much on this side, but they're wanting to draw that out. They're drawing this side out pretty nicely. I'd really like to see some eggs up here in this top brood box, because the queen hasn't been up here yet, and eggs will prove that she's been up here. All these cells, the majority of them are empty, which is partly good news because they're not packing it full of nectar. There's a little bit of honey and a strip across the top, or nectar. But the other 3/4 of the frame is still empty, so they're leaving it empty and ready for the queen. She just hasn't been up to it yet. Almost, I'd say more than 50% of these bees are the baby bees that just hatched out. Almost all of this area here, all of those bees are just a couple days old. Very small and very fuzzy and light colored, as opposed to some of these are darker, and these darker ones are the ones that I bought over a month ago. They're getting old, they're dying off, so it's good to see all these new ones hatched out. It's overcast today. It rained quite a bit last night. It's getting close to noon, but the sun hasn't come out yet. So there's a chance that they're going to be kind of moody. There's still some kept brood, and unfortunately what they're doing is putting all the empty cells after they hatch out. Those empty cells are full of nectar. So it's not even possible for the queen to come up here and lay. I do see a small handful of fresh eggs, so within the last day or so she has laid up here. And there's fresh eggs on this side, so she has made it up to this top brood box to lay. That's really good news. But they are putting nectar in some of those empty cells. So 3 weeks from now, when that's all capped and hatching out, it's gonna look pretty spotty, because they didn't give her a chance to lay in all of this. She's just laying in part of it. But it is good news that she's made it up to this top brood box. The large majority of these bees are newly hatched out bees, the light colored and fuzzy ones. This frame was empty when I put it next to it a week ago, and as you can hopefully see, there's fresh eggs. The large majority of this frame is fresh eggs, so that's really good news because there's multiple brood frames in this top box now. I wouldn't be surprised if the queen was up here, but I don't see her. They're starting to draw this frame out. It's getting drawn out enough that the queen could lay in this. They're real shallow cells, but she could lay in those shallow cells and they'll finish drawing the comb out around it. But I don't see any eggs on it. This other side they hadn't done anything with yet. I haven't found the queen yet, so I got to be careful when I move this top box off. I'd like to inspect this bottom brood box. I have to be careful and watch for the queen as I move the box. Two hive beetles in this trap, so it's working. I don't have very many hive beetles yet, but I want to get a jump start on keeping their population down. They're starting to draw this side out, but the last time I was in here I swapped outer frames to encourage them to draw out multiple frames, and since there's nothing on this, it looks like maybe they're focusing on something different right now. They quit working on that frame over there because this frame's completely empty, and they prioritized frames that already had drawn comb that were closer to the cluster to hide beetle hair. They're just starting to draw this corner out. It's all nectar. This frame is all nectar. A little bit of pollen. This is, I believe, one of the empty frames I put in there a week ago. They're back filling it with nectar, but they might clear that nectar out for her to lay in. This side has a lot of fresh eggs, 1 or 2 day old eggs. It's like that clear across. But they don't have it completely drawn out yet on either side. I still haven't spotted the queen yet, but this is a good brood frame. They're backfilling some of it with nectar, so hopefully they'll figure out that they can't be backfilling all those brood frames with nectar, and they can empty those out. But they gotta know that they need to be emptied out for the queen to lay in. I'm looking for the queen before I move the frame away from the box. This is a nice brood frame. Again, they're backfilling with nectar. I don't like to see them backfilling with nectar, but I am seeing 1 and 2 day old eggs. So I'm confident the queen's in here. I just hadn't gotten to her yet. This is a really good pollen frame. A lot of pollen. And there's real young larvae, maybe 3 to 4 day old larvae. So this is going to be a good brood frame. There's fresh eggs and capped brood on this. So it's a really good brood frame. Still no queen spotted yet. The queen's making me nervous because I haven't seen her yet. It's a real good brood frame with just a little strip of honey across the top. Same with this side. And no queen yet. There's some real young larvae, 2 or 3 or 4 day old larvae. Still no queen yet. There's all stages of larvae, clear down to 2 or 3 day old larvae. That side's drawn out really good. This side's, it's got larvae on this side as well, real young larvae. The eggs are just hatching out into larvae, so they're about 3 day old. The hive beetle here. So I went through all the frames and didn't find the queen. That makes me nervous, but I see all the signs that she's in there. I just didn't find the queen. hoping that she's just on this top box and I didn't see her, or she could have crawled up just before I picked this top box up. The truth is that she stood out really well before because she's real light colored. And all of her young, the ones that are freshly hatched out, are really light colored. That could be making her hard to spot. She's always been real easy to spot as soon as I got to the frame she was on. So it makes me a little bit nervous, but I'll come back in here and probably 2 days, see if there's 1 day old eggs, and if there are, then she's still in here. Otherwise, I may just try to spot her then. a little sad not to have seen the queen, but I've seen all the evidence that she's in there, so you don't have to spot the queen every time that you're in there. As long as you see day-old eggs, you can be confident that the queen was in there within that day, within the last 24 hours. But since I didn't spot her, I'll check back in about 3 days. I'll make sure that she's still laying eggs.